In this video, we are going to be talking about how you hire someone to help with your marketing. And this is definitely applicable for venues, but I think it is cross-applicable to pretty much anyone in the wedding and events industry. So whether you have a current marketing team and you're thinking about reevaluating that, or whether you're just getting started and you want to start handing off marketing, I think this will be some valuable information, all based off of what we've done and some of the struggles and some of the mistakes that we made along the process.
You're listening to the Venue RX podcast.
What's up, guys? If you haven't watched this show before, my name is Jonathan. I'm the host here at the Venue RX, and this show is all about documenting and sharing best practices for owning, operating, managing, and building world-class wedding venues. And my company, Common Sense Events, we manage several venues here in the Southern California area. We interview wedding venue owners from all over the country on our Real Wedding Venue Owner series that we've been doing right now, and that's been so much fun. And then we also have our regular podcast content where we're talking to industry experts about all things having to do with wedding venues, marketing, sales, pricing, everything that you could think about. And so this has been so much fun. Today, though, we're going to be talking about the process that our company went through when thinking about marketing and thinking about who we need to hire on our team so that we can start outsourcing it. And we went through several phases of this. And so I want to talk about this and share our experience with you and, hope that we can either get you faster to where you want to be building that marketing team, or maybe just kind of carve that path for you before you make some of the same mistakes that we made. So I want to share that with you as well, and then give you a couple of tips and a couple of points that I would use when considering who you want to hire, who you want to bring on board to your team, so you can stop working in your business so much in that specific marketing piece and more on the whole thing as a whole as an owner. So let's dive right in. All right, so when thinking about hiring a social media person, when thinking about hiring a content marketer or someone to help with your marketing, it's really, really important to understand where you're at as a business and then what things you have strengths in, what things you have weaknesses in, and prioritize and optimize for that. And so for me, I knew very early on that I had an idea of what something like good looked like, but I wanted the social media feed to look like for each one of our properties and how I wanted to feel and what I wanted the experience to be, but I didn't necessarily have the skills and the experience to execute that. And so if you look back, I don't know if the posts are archived, but if you look back on some of the venues that we managed, some of the posting that I did was pretty rough. It was kind of all over the place. And that's what we needed to do to get started. But then there was a point where I said, all right, we need to think about onboarding someone. And so we went through several phases of this. Now, there are three different points that I want to just bring up to you when considering bringing on a team member. And the first one of those is, make sure that whoever you're interviewing, you can ask them for examples of relevant social media content relevant to the industry. And so this was a really big thing for me. I felt like if we find someone who's amazing at social media, amazing at marketing, that there was almost like this one size fits all thing. And, if they could post great pictures of cats, they could post great pictures of, wedding venues and outdoor decor and like tablescapes and things like that. And one thing that I came to realize pretty quickly was there's a lot of context that is lacking when you hire someone who doesn't have industry experience. And so there were several people that I hired and we ultimately had to let go because there was a disconnect between me saying, hey, this is my vision, and I would kind of cast the vision for them. And then I would say, what's this? What's going on here? And it's because there were some missing pieces for them. They were maybe very good at posting on social media. They're very good at creating content, but just not the type of content that was actually what our couples were looking for. And so that is number one. When you are interviewing somebody, make sure, ask them, hey, do you have experience, with weddings, with event-based businesses? Can I see some of those posts that you've created? And then make sure you ask the question, did they create the content or did they take the content and just post it? Because those are two very different skills as well. If you are not aware, there's a program called Canva. There are several different tools as part of this thing called an Adobe suite that go through all sorts of graphic design tools. And you really want someone who is able to use at least Canva. Canva, there's a free option, there are paid options, and that's a graphic design tool as well. You want someone who is at least able to make something on Canva, if not using those other Adobe tools as well, to create posts. And that's going to really help level up your social media game and just your marketing game in general, wherever you're going to be posting things. So that's number one. Make sure that you can get relevant examples. Another thing is if you are interviewing someone who is a little bit new maybe to the industry, but they're really excited about it, they're passionate about it, and they're willing to do it for a bit of a discount. Maybe this is someone who's a student or someone who sees a future in marketing and they just want to start getting their feet wet. You need to ask them to just give you a couple test posts. So maybe give them, a couple of photos that you've used in the past maybe, or photos from photographers who have shot at at the property and say, show me how you would post this. Maybe post it on your feed or post it on our feed. Just give them access for a day or two, and just don't be afraid to try them. Don't be afraid to ask to see their work or ask to see how they would work if you were going to hire them. So that's point number one. Point number two is you want to look for a content creator versus a social media marketer. And there's a slight difference here, but one thing I found is when you go to hire someone who is a content creator, oftentimes they will be a little bit cheaper than someone who is a social media manager. And someone who's a social media manager generally is looking for different things. They're maybe looking for a little bit more strategy. They're looking to do a bit more of the strategic side of things versus the content creation side of things. And so I found as I was interviewing people, someone who called themselves a social media manager didn't necessarily want to be the one who was creating all the posts, but they definitely were okay being the one to put together all the strategy and say, okay, this is what we want to post then, and creating a posting schedule. But again, a posting schedule is not really worth much if you don't have content related to what you're going to be posting. And so that's what we really need. A lot of us as business owners, right? We need someone who can create the content or take the photos that we're getting from the photographers who are shooting at the properties and turn it into content that maybe has our brand colors around it or whatever the case may be, to really have that professional image. So that was a shift for me that was really, really helpful. Looking now for a content manager, content marketer, content creator, anything with content in the name of the title, versus someone who is a social media manager. Now, another piece of this is it's really important to ask them, what they have done in the past. Not just, this is my portfolio, these are the clients that I've worked for in the past, but what did you actually do? Were you the one that did the posting? Were you the one that did the creation? Did you use Canva like we just talked about? Did you use the Adobe Suite? What tools did you use? Asking questions like this will actually illuminate for you what they physically did in the other job, not just that they were responsible for the account, because there's so many different variations of that. And depending on the size of the company, they may have been in charge of just one small portion, and you as a venue owner, you want someone who's able to kind of do it all, because you don't want to do that side of it. So that's really an important thing to ask and dig into, and don't be afraid or shy about asking these questions, even if it's the first person you've ever hired. Now, point number three is it's really important to evaluate your business specifically. And we're talking to venue owners here on this, but whether you're in any sort of other event business or anything like that, and you're listening to this right now, evaluate where you're at. Evaluate what you want to be doing. Evaluate, does it make more sense for you at this point to hire an in-house employee who can be part-time? Maybe it makes more sense to hire someone as a contractor, where it's a little bit more flexible for you. Maybe you pay them every couple weeks or every month and when they invoice you. Maybe does it make more sense to hire a company? And so one of the questions that I like to ask myself is, are there other marketing activities that you want them to be doing that can kind of be bundled by hiring a company? Because that's certainly an advantage around hiring a social media management company. There's a little bit more of a professional image they have to maintain. They might want to take care of you a little bit more because they want to uphold that reputation that they have. They want to get those good reviews and things like that. And then also, if they're bundling services, they might have SEO, they might have ads, they might have some different things that are a part of the package that they've created that you're able to take advantage of. Now, if you just want someone who's able to post on social media for you and you're not interested in a bunch of other things, then it might make more sense to go with the contractor. Might make more sense to go with a part-time employee who's able to just focus on you alone. Now, even there's some variations of that, and we certainly went through that. We hired an individual who came on as a part-time employee, but then she had other clients that she was taking on. Now, we've done this as well on a contractor basis. In California, they make it really tough to have contractors, so we've actually switched everyone over to being, full W-2. But, back at this time, we were considering, okay, like this individual's a contractor, she's going to be creating content for us, but then she's also going to be creating content for other individuals. And I think in both those situations, we struggled because we wanted our marketing, and especially as we added venues on, we wanted our marketing to really stand out. And so when there was this struggle, I guess, and a little bit of friction between the time that she was spending on the other clients versus the time that she was spending on us, that steadily became an issue. And ultimately there was too much pressure, and she ended up wanting to leave us because she couldn't spread herself as thin as she felt like she might be able to. And with the demanding needs that we had, it just wasn't a fit. And so we ended up bringing in a part-time employee, and that individual now works about 30 hours a week. We have another employee who works, so she's also about 30 hours a week. And between the two of them, they're handling everything from Instagram, Facebook, blog posts, Google My Business, business posting, they're doing blogs, they're going on Pinterest and handling all of the pinning for all of the venues that we have. So the two of those individuals are really focusing on marketing as a whole, social media as a whole, and then we have contracted with someone outside of our company for Google Ads. So that's the only thing right now that we are using a separate contracted company. And Google Ads is such a specific thing, and we only were running ads for certain properties, so we just felt like it was better to use a contractor in that specific instance. Now, that's exactly an example of evaluating for your business what it looks like. And you might have a marketing background, and you might be very well equipped to do all of your own posting, or you might not. You might not want to have anything to do with it. You might say, marketing is completely out of my wheelhouse, and in that sense, and in that case, you need to make sure that you're working with someone who not only understands how to create the content, but they know how to post it, and then they know how to look at analytics and create reports that they're able to evaluate, okay, our engagement is going up, we're getting this amount of impressions, we have this progress that we're moving forward, and they can report back to you. You may not need that as much if you have a little bit more of a handle on marketing. So just evaluate where you are and consider how you're going to be spending the money. And the last piece of this is when you're thinking about hiring a company, they may be able to bundle services, but you have to consider they do have business overhead that they have to take care of. They likely have employees, they likely have other contractors and other people that they're paying. And so you want to make sure that when you're talking to them, you clearly understand the cost structure, you clearly understand if there's any contracts associated with working with them, and then you also need to understand what am I really getting from them? And if they're just going to be posting on social media and it's, going to be something like $200 or $300 per week versus you could find someone else closer to $100 a week and the same thing is going to get done, it might be in your favor to hire someone who is a little bit more flexible, maybe willing to show up on site a little bit more, do a little bit more for you because in your instance, things are a little bit smaller, but you might be listening to this right now and you might have several different properties and you might, really need that extra support. And so going the company route, even though there's the additional overhead, would make a lot of sense for you. So just some other things to consider. And then finally, I wanted to say, don't be afraid or don't be shy of letting someone go and giving, real honest feedback. It actually took me kind of a while to, have candor, have a level of honesty. And I know it sounds weird when you say it like honesty, because it's like, of course, I want to be an honest person. But sometimes it's tough when you're working with contractors, you see them putting in work, you're working with employees, you see them putting in work and effort, but it doesn't turn out how you're looking for it. It's a lot better to just communicate that up front. And even in the interview process, say, ask the question, how do you like to give and receive feedback? And when you ask this question, then you're able to understand, okay, if I'm going to give this person honest feedback, I have to make sure that I deliver it in this way. So I'm not hurting their feelings, but I am communicating my expectations and what I want from them. I have been disappointed so many times, honestly in myself, because I haven't communicated the expectation that I wanted. I've just kind of expected someone to read my mind. And then when they didn't read my mind correctly, I was a little bit upset, but ultimately the fault is my own, right? And so I think as venue owners, we have so many different things going on. As people in the event industry, there's so much going on. We're taking care of our clients. We are focused on delivering, serving them. We're focused on everything else that's going on. And it feels like in this piece where you now become a coach, you now become someone who has to work with someone else in this arena that maybe you're not super familiar with, it might be easier to back down a little bit and back away. And you just have to have the confidence to say, no, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I like. And certain people, sometimes they aren't capable of delivering that. And so you have to be confident and have to not be afraid to say, hey, I see what we're getting here. And it's not totally up to the expectation that I had, so I want to move in a different direction. And you could just use verbiage like that. It's an honest, transparent conversation. You can say, hey, I think we need to move in a different direction. And people usually have been pretty receptive to that. Although it is disappointing, of course, and you feel like you maybe wasted some time or money, you're able now to use the lessons that you've learned with that individual and move on and find someone else. Because even though you talk to them, even though you interview them, sometimes even if you call references and check and look in portfolios and things like that, you can realize when you start working with someone that, like the good old saying is, the proof is in the pudding, right? So you see that, that they can handle what you're looking for, and sometimes they aren't, so you have to be willing to offboard them. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Hiring is definitely tricky. Hiring a marketing person or a marketing team is very challenging as well, and so I know for a lot of us, we do want to outsource this very quickly, but there can be some trepidation around that. So I hope this video has kind of helped reveal a little bit about what we did and what I found to be successful. And if you have any questions about that process or any more questions about how to hire somebody or maybe who to hire first, or the different platforms or things like that. I'd love to talk about that in a different video. Leave a comment below and we can chat about that more, and I can make follow-up content around that. All right, thank you so much for listening. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It makes a big difference. We're trying to grow to 1,000 subscribers. We're so close. I think we can do it by the end of this year, but I do appreciate your time, and we will see you all in the next video.